Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Orna Ramsey. I'm one of the careers advisors and also employer liaison officer. And we have two fantastic speakers today to talk about project management. And I'll pass on the microphone to our first speaker, Kenny McGuire. Thank you.
My name is Kenneth McGuire, or Kenny McGuire. I am a junior project manager at Leidos. Leidos is a public sector private company that works in the public sector in defence as well as transport, so airports, MOD. But for myself, I work in the devolved government portfolio, which is dealing with our Scottish government customers. And I have been a project manager for 3.5 years, and I joined Leidos via the grad scheme, which I can go over later. Do you want me to keep going, or do you want to introduce Paul first? I will keep going. I could do my slides.
Sorry,
better, Kenny.
So, if you could move on to the next slide. So what I thought I'd tell you about is my journey into project management. What I did before I was project manager at Leidos, what I've done during it, and kind of any advice I could give to you guys. So this is blatantly taken from my graduate presentation I had to do at the end of the scheme. But basically, for me, who was I before project management? I was an engineer. So I did aerospace engineering. You can see in the bottom left picture there, that's me building a drone with my team. I then, with engineering, I went, do you know what? I like working in technology, but I don't like coding, to be honest. Everything's kind of focused on computer science now. So there was a master's at Glasgow Uni that was aerospace engineering and management. And from that, the management courses I could do were project management, operations management, marketing, and a couple other ones I can't remember. Great, HR was one. So from that, I really enjoyed all of them, and I ended up getting really good marks. And in my dissertation, I was given the option between engineering and management. And my dissertation was on management side, but drawing a little bit on my aero side, which was the feasibility of drones in the current infrastructure of the UK, if we can do drone delivery systems. So from that, I went, do you know what? I like management, but I don't know what to do. Where am I going with my career? And I used to think, oh, if I want to manage an engineering team, I need to be an engineer for X amount of years before I can get there. But that was not the case at all. And because I wasn't a business student, I didn't have the full industry knowledge of all the different business areas you go into. So I ended up applying for a number of roles. I applied for two of the main ones that I got to the end of was Leidos, which is a project management graduate, and Skyscanner as a product manager, which are very similar, slightly different views, but both very similar kind of views. And as I was going through it, I ended up going for Leidos. I put my hand up in both interviews and says, look, I'm an engineer. I can talk to the technical teams, but I might not have all the background that some of you guys in the call will have if your core project management will have in Leidos. And I think a lot of companies now are doing this where they go, we don't care. Your degree is great, but you're the person that we actually want to know. What are your skill sets? What are you good at? So I end up picking up the job with Leidos. So going in, first couple of weeks, I did a number of rotations. I also do American football at university, which is nice as an employer. It's always nice for you to see what else you're doing. I coached and played, and for me and for advice for you guys is, that's great that you've got a degree. I might ask a question in your dissertation, but what else did you do? Did you work? Did you do anything at university? I want to see those other skills around about you. So that's just something to keep in your head. Who are you as the person, not as this piece of paper says you are. So next slide, please. So when I joined on the grad scheme, and first rotation was top left was Department for Education. So I was a junior project manager and PMO. So the PMO, some of you might not know this, project management office, and this is a collection, depending on the business you're in, of finance people, administrators, and project managers. Depending on how you can help that area, there's a number of jobs in there, but all need a project manager or can be ventures into different career prospects. So I worked as that, just me, myself, there was no one else. So I was supporting the senior project manager on that. And we were working on SharePoint systems there as part of Lidos. I then had Highlands and Islands, Highways England. I keep getting the two of them mixed up. Where I worked as a service manager, service design manager. And that is similar to project management, but your ongoing service. If you want to work for a company like Netflix or Google, these are services they can't go down, for example. So you need to be able to help and make sure that they're available. So I worked in service design there. I worked in Scottish Government. That's one of my contracts currently. I've been on it for 2 years as a project manager, and that is project we are supporting Scottish Government through a service integration contract. Now, again, I've said service there, but I'm a project manager within service IT, and that is doing Agile, Waterfall-based projects, or as Scottish Government likes to say, Wagile, because at the end of the day, it's still taxpayers' money. You can't just run away doing an Agile project. And we deliver a number of services, cyber security, cloud services to the Scottish Government. And then at the same time, currently I work on Highlands and Islands Enterprises. Highlands and Islands, they are the people that deal with the grants to small, medium enterprises within the Highlands and Islands and pay for and give boosts of money into businesses, training and skills and graduate schemes, so on and so forth. And from that, we are designing one of their hubs using a Power BI system. It's called basically a really cool dashboard thing that's got a bunch of data going into that. That's so we do that. So that's all that I've kind of worked in there. One of my biggest customers that I work for is my own company. So I've worked on internal projects like finance, and I've done some work on graduate reset programs where I've been an internal project manager, which is an interesting way that you can learn in a safe environment to go on and keep going. So all these projects, all of them different, they're all still projects, I'd say. And I've been a project manager with one different hat on in each one, depending. As soon as you guys go into industry, you'll find out that project management is not just, I go in and I write a plan and I manage the budget and I manage my team. There's so many other facets. There's things like bringing new business in, making sure the customer's happy, stakeholder management. And for a lot of it, a lot of skills can be taught, but really it's how do you deal with your team and how do you deal with your people? So it's really keen to get and learn how you're comfortable as a leader. So leadership goes across all of this, and there's many, many different types of leaders, and it's how you connect with your staff. How do you encourage them to motivate them? And there's so many different kind of facets into that. But anyone, and I say anyone, can be a project manager. It's how much you apply it, and having the knowledge always helps. But sometimes in industry, really good technical person can become a project manager, and there's so many different avenues that you guys can go into, and it's so across the board that I highly recommend that if any of you, and I thought it was great seeing banking people and computer science, because at the end of the day, you have your own experiences. Most of industry, especially with COVID now and not being able to meet people, it's no longer about the piece of paper, it's about the person. It does depend on what industry you're working on. Sometimes there's archaic ones like law and finance and Ministry of Defence, they want the piece of paper, but depending is how you grow, and it's always about that continuous learning. Next slide, please. This slide's not meant to be in it. Go for the next slide. So something that I did that you guys should have access to, and especially at university, and this is I'm going to talk a wee bit about APM. So APM is hosting this event. So one of the things that APM as a governing body does is they realize that not one set of ways fits every single program. Depending on what your work is, what your customer wants, and what your company wants, they are slightly different. Now, one area that I really, really enjoyed is the APM challenge. This is across for young people in university. I think there's a separate challenge, but graduates and people who haven't been in the industry that long. So as soon as you get into your companies or you go to work or whatnot, try apply for this. But so I worked down south for a bit. So on the left hand side, that's me as my first projects, and that was an internal project where we were trying to do some well-being work. And then the second year of my grad scheme, I actually was the coach and the mentor for the two projects. One of them which won the competition, but the two project teams, we've got a team up north and team down south that we entered. And it's what these things, these extra activities that APM does that allows you to grow and in a safe environment and challenge and meet people. The amount of people that I worked at I met at different companies, different learnings, even people in my own company, the four gents on the left, I didn't never worked with them before this, but all of us wanted to learn and join that. So it is the benefit of being part of APM is all these activities. You guys, if you stay with us and you continue to grow, we'll get to go to events, you'll get to go to host events like this, you'll get to engage. And this, for me, is a nice way to give back. Also, blatantly, if anyone wants to get my number, I can recruit you to my company as well. So there's always going to be a benefit to doing these type of events. So I'm afraid I will leave it there. That's a very whistle-stop tour, but one of the most, I've done these ones before, and normally the most important things is what questions do you have for me? So I've got 9 minutes or so. So if anyone wants to jump in with any questions, and then one thing that I will say that I had a previous one of these at Coventry University, it happened to be that all the people speaking were engineer who turned into project manager, engineer who turned into project manager. You don't need to be an engineer. You could be whatever you want, and it's really just about applying yourself. We're not like law or medicine where you must be to plan that you're going to be a lawyer or a medic for all of your life, and that is you stuck in that career. There's people from all facets of life. One of my bosses, very successful program manager, had an art history degree. Another one has a master's degree in Scottish history and mythology and archaeology. She came over from Canada. Both of my best bosses that I've had neither really studied project management, but of those who are studying project management, we've also got the really successful lot that have came in and went, this is a great foundation, but none of this happens in the real world. And you'll learn to be agile and to adapt. And that is what, if I'm interviewing you guys, I would want to see from you is your skills. I will ask you difficult questions to see what happens and see who you are outside it. If you guys are in sports clubs, if you're in gaming clubs or whatnot, I want to know what's your role in that, because sometimes there's nice little bits of scheduling and group organization and leadership that you can pull out of that. And my last piece of advice for you guys at university, I know it's really hard with COVID and things, but what else makes you you other than a student? Now, for my time, drinking at student was really helpful, but I don't want to hear that in an interview, but social aspects, always good to hear. So I'll open the floor to any questions. Please fire away and shout if there's anything in particular.
Thank you, Kenny. That was a great, introduction to the profession and your background. We really appreciate it. So students, if you want to ask questions using the chat function, that's fine. Or if you're okay to unmute yourself and speak, that's fine too. And in the email, I asked if you could prepare at least one question when you come here. So hopefully everybody's got something to ask, and I'll leave it to you.
Who's going to be Mr. Crabtree? Go for it. Matt.
Hi there. Hi.
Hello.
Matt. Hi. So I'm working on a couple of things at the moment. I've done some small agile projects in the past, and I was wondering what was the biggest kind of difference between that you felt when you went from doing agile as a student, working in that kind of methodology, to going into industry and seeing how it's actually done? What were the
So interesting enough, when I was at university, all of mine were waterfall because it was all hardware. So we had to build a drone. It's not a case that you can go, is this a drone? And keep changing it every week. And I think there's a great thing they can find online is project manager thinks that 9 ladies can make 1 baby in 1 month, just adding more resources. But Agile is person who takes it out every now and then, checks it. Is that okay? And checks it. But I think Agile as a principle is amazing. It's really interesting and it works very well in certain areas. However, all my customers are public sector. They need to know where their taxpayers' money are going and they know what they want. But Agile is a buzzword these days. So for me going in, I'm like, this is Agile. I know how to do Agile. I'm a Scrum Master and product owner trained. Never had the chance to do it, but I worked on Waterfall. Suddenly I now have an Agile project. And they're like, and if you go online, everything will say Agile experience. And they don't, the government calls it Agile. They want something delivered in this certain period with these certain things, but they want you to do Agile. So it looks like they're ticking off the words. And I think that's the main trouble is people don't follow the theories of it. So Scrum and Kanban. I normally do Kanban. I've got some Scrum that I do currently, but Kanban is what I like to do. That is great for my developers. and prioritizing it. And it's mainly getting, if my customer invests into it, then we can invest into it fully. But there's a little bit of, unfortunately, like people don't really know what it is. The current word is cloud transformation and digital transformation. That's the ones you'll hear everywhere else. And they don't know what it is, but it sounds great. Someone's told them about it, like, yeah, I want that. But it's all about how you adapt your experience as Agile and as Waterfall, and you can make a hybrid as Agile or a hybrid of some sort that you know what's best for you and the customer. If your team can't work in an Agile environment, they really struggle. Don't do it. Don't do it. Find other people. But if the customer is desperate for Agile, and you can stretch and learn, but maybe it is a case of setting expectations. It's not really in service world. It's not a case of, right, I demand this product, I want a glass. It's like, no, let's have a conversation. It needs to be good for me and for you. And there's a lot of partnerships going on in the industries. See Paul laughing. I don't know if that's agreement or a disagreement. He's like, no, you're wrong. Agreement, that's great. I think he knows, like, oh, people don't follow that at all. But I think that's, once you learn to adapt, that's a great one. Here we go. So there's another question. What would you suggest for newbies to get the environment to learn those methodologies, especially Agile, Prince 2, and Waterfall? I, project manager, never done Prince 2. And I don't see the advantages in Prince 2. However, the main thing is if you pick something, these are great frameworks. So the reason why my company is sponsored by APM, one of the chairman of the Scotland branch worked with us, and that's why we have APM. There's also PMI, which is the international one, that if your company is, my company's an American company, all of our American project managers have PMI. Depending on your customer, certain customers will have requirements for what one. As long as you have one, as long as you have the basis of what you think is a great framework to go down and teach you the principles, and it's all about what you guys are all learning great things for your degrees, and that's a great framework. But the world of work is not like that. And that's the kind of idea of, here's my basis. So personally, Waterfall will be covered in Prince and kind of Agile, but APM has training courses of them all. You guys can all sign up as APM students. It's completely free. You just put in your student address and things. But just going in and learning what they're roughly about, there'll be some that you maybe do for your university, but see in an interview, if you say, I go, oh, you've not got any Agile or whatnot, most likely that wouldn't happen. But I will then want to know what other research you've done and if you're aware of it. And I think that's more important. Are you aware of these things? Companies will put you through these, especially if you're all going on to graduate schemes. You'll be put through the training. I wouldn't recommend paying for your own training. If there's any free courses, that's always great, especially some of you guys who are trying to jump into project management. If there's a project management course just to bridge that gap. I fortunately at my university had a master's in engineering and management, so I could combine them and I could easily apply for it for me. But if you don't have that opportunity and you want to get into the world of work, it's all about how you do in your interviews and your assessments, and just knowing things like risks, scheduling can all help. Okay. I'll answer this last one then. I'm afraid I'm going to have to drop off. Oh, sorry. Just to add something, without having a job, someone can learn. There's online courses. YouTube is amazing for courses right now, and I highly recommend jumping onto that and just learning basic principles. I believe APM Online has a number of videos on that. What's the process to go through APM to pass the professional courses? Right. So my company put me through it. So there's the PFQ, which is the project fundamentals, multiple choice exam. You study for it and you pass the exam. My company puts people through that. I don't know if it's the same for other companies. I've got the PMQ. I went straight to that. With my background in management, I could already pass a couple of the areas, and that's an essay written one. But APM in particular, and I don't know about the other ones, APM was all about my experiences, what my company does, not you must do it this way. It was like, here's a good framework, but if you've got better experience, tell us about it. And that was a course that I sat for a couple of days. That's the qualification side. On the other side, there's the membership side. So there's student membership, and then you pay for an associate membership. A lot of companies, including mine, we pay people to do the memberships. So my company gives one professional membership for free a year. The company pays for it. I've got APM. So I'm an associate member. Once you've done 5 years or 3 years with the PMQ, which technically I should be applying for now, I haven't done it yet, you can apply for full member. After that, it's chartership, fellowship, and things like that. So you can move up that way. and sorry, I'll grab this list from where should we start to apply for the jobs being PM students who don't have engineering? Anywhere. If you, as a PM, you've got construction, engineering, IT, just type in project manager. There's so many jobs out there. What I wouldn't do is apply for a job that's way out there, and it's definitely above your experience. But graduate schemes, I think, are the best place. There's tons of great websites. LinkedIn's really good for job recruiting right now. If you don't have LinkedIn profiles, get them made. Have a look on some courses online, but what's good for LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. It's just Kenneth McGuire. Give me a shout if you need anything from that. And then, yeah, I used Indeed. That's where I found Lidos. But also start having a look at the industry you want to work in and just click on their career websites. Some of them use recruiters, some of them don't. Some of them come directly into them. My company, I think we're on LinkedIn, Glassdoor, and a couple of other areas. But through our website is the best way to apply. Currently not taking any grads this year. We're only taking technical grads. So if there's any of the computer science, Matt, if you need to apply, you can always apply for that. But project management, we're going to do next year. We had a good influx, but I ended up applying for multiple. And just remember, the name doesn't have to be project manager. It can be service manager, business development, account manager, product manager, change manager. As long as you read that list and you go, I could do that. I've learned a little bit of that. You can go for it. So it's such an open career. As soon as I moved into it, I found all these other areas. Right. I'm afraid I don't have time for the last question. Sorry, Grace, but I'll leave that to Paul to answer. Paul, there you go. You can have that grenade. But thank you all for listening. I am, my email is kenneth.mcguire@lidos.com if you have any emails that you want to give me, or just add me on LinkedIn and we can have a chat. I'm sorry I've got to rush off like this, but customer never waits. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Kenny, for your time and insight. It was really, really useful. And I'm sure our students learned a lot. And thank you for also giving your contact details. I have your email address as well and your slides, but I assume you don't want to share everything on the slides. So
no, some of them I can't.
Yeah.
But so it's going to be on YouTube anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Okay. So the recording anyway, yeah. And we have also mentoring schemes. So I will email you with the mentoring information as well. It would be great to have you as one of our mentors for our students.
No problem.
Okay.
That's fine.
Very much.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. That's great. Thank you. Okay, then. So, Paul, thank you for waiting. Sorry for the wait there.
No worries at all.
And I'm glad now your earphones and your microphone and everything else, video as well, working. So I'd like to introduce you, but I don't have any other information than Paul. So would you like to introduce yourself and start your talk? Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much for attending. First, let me see if I can share my screen. Should I have my slides up? Can everybody see my screen?
I think it's loading. Yes, we can now.
Okay. So my name is Paul Abifarin. I have a first degree in electrical engineering and an MSc in project management from Liverpool. I've done about 25 years now in the project management sector of the oil and gas industry. I enjoy cycling, I enjoy traveling, and I'll show you a few slides. Okay, can you see the slide change?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm a chartered project manager through the APM. As I said, I've got an MSc electrical engineering degree. I'm a Shell Project Management Technical Authority. I've got my PMP also with PMI. I've done greenfield and brownfield projects in the oil and gas industry, covering the pre-FEED, FEED, detailed design, procurement, construction, commissioning, and handover. 14 years with operators and 11 years with contractors. My travels have taken me through the UK, France, Nigeria, in the Middle East, Oman, and Qatar. So my footprint is dominantly in the Europe, Middle East, and Africa. The remit I got for this session was to talk about soft skills for project managers. So if I can carry on with that, or if there are questions outside of that, I'm open to taking them on after. So I'll go through my slides now Then we can have a discussion around the slides or anything outside of the slides themselves. Is that okay?
Sounds good.
Okay, good stuff. So project manager, you've heard of hard skills and soft skills. In my experience, I've found that hard skills tend to, be oriented towards management, and soft skills tend to be oriented towards leadership. Soft skills, people oriented, while management and hard skills are task oriented. So if we're talking about project management soft skills, we're talking about leadership, we're talking about communication, we're talking about team management, we're talking about conflict management and creative resourcefulness. And I'll delve deeper into each of these in my next slide. As the focus is on soft skills today, I'll just, park the hard skills section to the side for now, but we can talk around them when we get to the question and answer session. So next slide. If you talk about, let me put this in slide mode. Good. If you talk about being a leader is about exerting positive influence on the people you're working with to steer your project to success. And you can break down that influence into integrity. The project manager cannot be found wanting in ethical conduct. The project manager nurtures people around him. He initiates and enhances their development. He has to have faith, but it has to be unblinded faith. You need to assess the person you're, assigning or delegating a task to, and be sure they have the potential to deliver what you're tasking them with. You have to be a good listener. You have to be conscious of body language from others, and you have to express your own body language to convey part of the message that you're trying to, deliver to the listener. The understanding, how does it feel being in other people's shoes? I mean, are you, putting people in a situation where you yourself wouldn't like to be in? And then the idea of empathy, a reflective sense of self and other people's emotions. How do you manage yourself? How do you not lose your cool when everyone else around you is losing theirs? The topic of mindfulness is a popular discussion these days, along with mental health. So those are key aspects of the project manager's competency that he needs to hold true to himself. Then navigating and steering the project through storms and muddy waters, they're more likely than not going to happen. You've got to be able to stand up and be the captain of the ship when it runs into a storm. You've got to be able to communicate appropriately, as we said already. What kind of tone, what kind of choice of words, what's your body language that you're expressing, all that comes through your communication. Then you've got to be exemplary. You've got to exhibit and promote appropriate behaviors that, show that you're well aware of things like gender inclusion, racial inclusion, working across different cultures. You've got to be able to demonstrate that capability. Now, communication, a bit deeper into communication, there's the 5 W's and 1 H. What is being communicated? Why are we communicating this? Who are we communicating to? Some of you might be familiar with communication channels. You need to be able to have an idea of how many people are in your communication network. Where am I going to, communicate or send the information to? Is it horizontal, vertical, internal, external? How do I adapt that communication to suit the people I'm speaking with? When do I need to communicate? You've got daily reports, you've got weekly reports, you've got monthly reports, you've got annual reports. You've got to be clear on all those upfront. And then how do I, communicate this to the people? Is it in person? Do I want to go spoil my my line manager's weekend by giving him the bad news on a Friday afternoon? If it so deserves, maybe. Do I want to go to send an email? Do I want to go on phone? Do I want to have a poster? Do I want to do a presentation? You've got to be able to strategize your communication approach appropriately to suit the mode, the method, and the timing of the information to be communicated. Then we talk about soft skill, team management. There's team building and there's team bonding. Team building is you're putting people who are, qualified for certain roles in the appropriate boxes. You're not hiring the wrong person. You're not putting a square peg in a round hole. And then team bonding, those are the softer part of it, where you try and get people to gel, where you bring people to become one part of the team, where you form a team culture and you get everybody on board. You have your ground rules, you have the adequate competencies, you get through the project through your forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. And then you have occasional away days, you celebrate your wins, you give pep talk. Sometimes those away days can serve as a good environment for, tackling difficult issues that cannot be discussed in the office. Take them out of the office and have those conversations in those softer, neutral environments. And then conflict management. Sometimes people tend to want to avoid conflicts, but in the project management environment, you're working with people from multiple culture, multiple discipline. You have multifarious stakeholders to manage as well. There is more likely that not conflicts would happen. And when they do happen, you've got to be aware of what strategies, what approaches you can take to manage those conflicts appropriately. You can collaborate, you can accommodate, you can compromise, you can choose to compete, but in project management, avoidance is not something that is encouraged. It does exist as a conflict management strategy, but it is not encouraged. Creative resourcefulness. This is where you generate ideas, how to get people to either you're solving a problem, you are creating a different product, or you are resolving conflict, or you are finding solutions to knotty issues in the live project. You can get people together to do a brainstorming. You can do a nominal group technique. You can do mind mapping. You can do affinity diagramming. You can have force field analysis. You can have cause and effect, SWOT analysis, root cause analysis. Those are tools that you can draw upon to try and have what is called creative resourcefulness in project management. Thank you for your time. That's all the slides I've got. Have you got any questions?
That's great. Thank you very much, Paul. Really appreciate it. And shall we start with Grace's question in the chat?
Grace, can you share some challenges? Is that the right one? Can you share some challenges you have encountered before getting into the project management industry? And how did you handle such challenges? Well, a bit of a background here. I was very lucky in the sense that I had an internship with an oil company. And because of the relationship I had built during my internship, I then was granted an opportunity to come and work with them. So I couldn't possibly say there was so much of resistance or was such an uphill task for me to get started in project management. But as I went along in that journey, there were challenges to being, given the right kind of task, because sometimes you feel that you can do more than you're being given to do. So being able to convince people that you have, got the skills and capability to mount that pedestal and get the challenge that you think you deserve, it takes a lot of convincing patience as well on your part. You've got to be able to convince them by delivering adequately, appropriately, what tasks, maybe the smaller tasks you think that you've been given. You may need to exhibit or demonstrate superior mastery in those before you can climb up the ladder. Hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome, Grace. Nwabweze, are there advantageous soft skill over another? And what are those, if there exist? I wouldn't put one as being better than the other, because the point is the soft skills are all useful, and the one that comes at the top of the list is leadership. So leadership has an embodiment of different aspects. And you should bear in mind that project management and project leadership, they're not, you cannot separate them. They're one and the same. So there is none that is more important or less important. They are all equally important.
That's great, thank you. And before I go to Crabtree, the students, I'm just going to record, stop the recording, okay, sorry about this. And thank you, for those who are watching offline after we finish this, but students on the call will stay on and have more chat.